Well, that sucks. Looks like I better do an axle seal change. G'day peoples, and yes, I've got to replace another axle seal, but I'm pretty sure that this might be the third diff and second diff housing that's been braced and bent. Anyone ever tell you I hate working on cars? Yeah, looking pretty bad. Well, I haven't really seen too many videos on how to change an axle seal, so it's pretty much the same procedure as doing a CV, or even half of it is doing wheel bearings. So I may as well do a bit of a step-by-step to show how I do it. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm a mechanic, far from it in fact, but this is what works for me, so let's get into it. I've got an 8mm Allen key. It looks like the ring came out with it. And there's another ring in there as well, but this one here is the step ring, which seems to be a little bit stuck. You can see there's two screws. So we undo those. Careful not to lose them, or put them in the petrol. Now that holds the locking ring on. And we'll get that off. Special tool here for undoing the adjusting nut. I've got to take the brakes off, which are 7/8. I find it's easier while it's still half sitting on there to spread the calipers a little bit. Makes it easier to get it back on. Yeah, looks like I will have to pull that hub apart because the circlip is going off the end of the axle shaft. So it must be still inside there. Now I won't clean that up yet because I'll get some fresh petrol before I do clean the bearings. Great, it's going to rain. Perfect. Alright, there's 3 10mm bolts holding this little backing plate on. Now you will notice there's a little indentation just there, which matches with a little hole just above there for when you're lining it back up. Now I think these are 14. Yep. Gets the brake shroud off. This section here has got to come off. And I've found that sometimes if you tap the flat edge, just there, and get it to move and break the seal of the it's elastic. So we'll get that bit off. Next section is to pull the CV out. Now the CV has flats on it, so you just need to pull that out with the flats at the top and the bottom. And out she comes. The axle seal right in there can be a little bit hard to get out. Having a feel of that, no wonder it leaks. It's all ripped. Unless you've got a dedicated seal puller, I find the next best thing is just get a long thin screwdriver and punch through it. Try not to damage the seal surface. And normally these come out a lot easier than this. There we go. Just that when I punched the seal out, I had the screwdriver here pushing that way so that I didn't punch into that surface at the back there or into this side surface, which is where the seal actually seals. And you've got to have a good feel in there. If there's any sort of roughness at all, then it's probably a good idea to use a bit of silicone sealant on the edge of the seal when you put it in. It's just a genuine seal. Trail gear is probably a better one, but I figure since I'm going to have to change it in another 10,000 k's anyway, I may as well use this. So for punching these seals into place, just find an appropriate sized socket. In my case, 32mm inches. So make sure you wax some grease on the seal surface before you put the CV back in. Now, while we're at it, we've also got to pack the CV with some lithium grease. And because the oil pretty much washed it all out, just make sure there's plenty in there. Okay, you notice just there there's a brass ring, and make sure that's on there when you put it all together, because if that falls off, it's about 1/8 of an inch thick, so it'll be, all the other stuff will be too loose. Yeah, put a little string of silicone sealant around it. Doesn't need much because it's a very tight fit. Okay, get it all lined up. Slip it on. Nice and easy. Cleaned up the backing plate. Yeah, we've got to find the little indent. Sits in there. I'll give the bearing a wash out. And you've got some high temp bearing grease. Pulling the bearing out. It's basically like trying to find a G-spot. So I'm just trying to drag the grease into the bearing and spin the bearing a few times. And do it all again. Right. And basically what I was trying to do was trying to push the grease into the end of the bearing, and then you can see it actually starts to come out around the rollers. Okay, now there's a small edge, a chamfer on one side of the wheel bearing tensioner nut, so we put that on the inside, like so. Now find our special tool. is do it up too tight to seat everything in there, because there's all grease and stuff in the way. Undo and do it back up again. Make sure there's no play. And that seems a bit loose to me. And now we've got the spacer ring's got to go in there. And we've also got this locking ring. So what you've got to do is line up the screw holes that are in this edge. And now we're going to line up this locking ring using the tabs, and that seems to line up with a hole there, which should correspond with a hole over there. So these two screws should now fit into there, fit into the one on the opposite side, now that should hold the adjusting nut from coming loose. Right, so the step ring fits in there. Okay, and we've got the gear section out. That fits over the spline. You may have to push the axle or the CV down a little bit to get it to fit in. Now, getting this CV circlip on can sometimes be a bit hard, as I'll show you why. If I get just the edge of it, so I can push that in and out quite a long way. And so I find the easiest way is push everything in, put the circlip on, and get it started a bit better. Then pull the CV out, if I can get a grip on it. Pull that out. And then push that in, push the circlip in till it locks into its little groove. Yeah, all good. And with the hub, you only need a little bit of oil, some lightly greased. But if you have too much in, causes it to drag, so which will then unlock itself. Have it in the unlock position. Fine thread on the brake caliper bolts, so they're very easy to get started wrong. And make sure you can do them by hand before you put a spanner on them. I have had these come undone before, which is not fun. Especially when you're out in the middle of the desert. And it's a very specialised bolt. And it's pure luck that I happen to have a spare one with me. Now you got to ask, why wouldn't you just get a shop to do it? So I checked to make sure there was no movement up and like that way before I let it down. That makes sure that the bearing is properly tight. And the last bit is just go around with the manual wheel nut doer upper so that you can make sure that it's not too tight and you'll be able to get it undone by hand. And that, folks, is how I do it. Really should just give it up and go and get the shop to do it, because it'd be a whole lot easier and a whole lot cleaner. But trying to do it on the grass at home gives you good grounding to be able to do it when you're out bush somewhere. When you come across problems, you've got to get around them and try and use what tools you've got in the truck. So just make sure you've got enough bits. Anyway, that'll be it for this episode, and I'll see you on the next adventure.